Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, however you're hearing us. And thank you for tuning in to Sleuthing Eye Opening Tales of the Past. I'm your host, Marie LaBrosse. I'm coming to you from beautiful Northport, Florida. Where is that? And anyhow, we're coming from WKDW 97.5 FM, Real Community Radio. And we're coming from the Bishop West Real Estate Tower. I'd like to talk to everybody today, and I'll bring on my guest, Joan Morgan, right now, because tomorrow, and this will be airing next week, so it's going to be a little bit late, but it'll still be in April. And April is prevention of turning in all those unused drugs that you have laying around that are outdated or that you no longer need. So welcome to the stage with me, Joan Morgan. Hi, Joan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. And like Joan knows that I've been ill over the last actually year and a half. I've had a lot of things going on, and that's why you haven't seen me out there that much, but I'm feeling much better. I had carotid artery surgery. My neck looks much better here. I had a pacemaker put in, and last year I went through cancer. So, life has a way of kicking you in the butt and realizing what is important, and family and friends are important. But you, the listener, is also important too. Right, Joan?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We need to get to them. They need to listen to everything you say because you're a woman of wisdom.
Well, in our opinion, but I don't know how the world looks at it. But I would like to also, I did want to bring up on the screen because suicide has a lot of things to do. And I get suicide in some respects when somebody's ill. Joan and I had this conversation yesterday, and I know going through some painful things, and my husband had just gone through a hip replacement, but before that he was in so much pain. And I get it. I really do get it. When somebody's in so much pain and they can't get relief, I understand that. But Joan, for the other reasons, if it's mental health or that, there's ways to deal with that. And one of the ways that people do commit suicide is where they take drugs. So, and accidental, if you have drugs around your home and a child can get into them, or even somebody that is a little unstable, get rid of them. If they're of no use to you anymore, get rid of them. And here's the way to do it. And tomorrow is National Prescription Drug Take Back Day. And tomorrow is Saturday, April 23rd. And this will be airing on the radio, but for all of you people out there in social media, you're seeing it live right now. Now, if you go to recovertogether.com, you can actually discover the different areas to give back. And I'm trying to turn off my phone while I'm doing this because I forgot to do that. But if you look on this map here, you can see all the different locations in our area. And if you go to this map and you hold it over here, the Northport Police Department is one of the places, and their address is 4980 City Hall Boulevard, Northport, and it's off of Sumter, in case you know where that is. And Venice Police Department has that. And I'm sorry to say, I live in Charlotte County, and I don't see our Sheriff's Department having anything, or the Punta Gorda Police Department, because they're our only place in Charlotte County that's a real city. So I'm really sad to see that it wasn't there. But you can actually drop off your drugs to the CVS pharmacies that are in Charlotte Harbor all the time. So don't let that stop you. Joan, can you read that on the screen? help
I
keep
can
your,
kind of see it's very, very faint here, but I tell you
okay.
what, people really need to pay attention to this. There's two kinds of people that I really fear. One, of course, is the very young kids getting a hold of parents' prescription medicine or whatever they see and take and whatever this kind of stuff. And the other one is the kind of the elderly, because I will tell you, and I know situations, and I can even name names where a husband's having a heart attack and a wife is trying to help him and giving him her heart medicine. Well, if you give him the wrong heart medicine, guess what? You've killed him. And it's happened. It's not that you want to. And also in talking with senior citizens at the mobile home parks, and I'll tell you what, this has been a major thing where people, the elderly have mixed their drugs unintentionally and sometimes intentionally. This hurricane has done in a lot of people mentally, physically, emotionally, every single way. And basically, what I've seen in going in the mobile home parks is, you know, some of them have just said, I've had it, okay, and kind of want it over with. And others have just accidentally done this. But it's really important that you don't take somebody else's medication. And it's also equally important, if you talk to any pharmacist, man, they'll tell you this. You don't take medicine that is totally out of date, because it can be very harmful. The potency in it can change when it's just sitting there in a bottle. And, you got to be really careful, because here's another thing. And this is so important. We have so many problems in America, and here's one of them. People go to different doctors, get different medications, and mix the drugs. All right. We need to have the pharmacists. They all have PhDs now, because since 1990 something, they all had to have a doctorate degree to be a pharmacist. Okay. And you need to go to them and check all your medications, because what's happening is these doctors, and I'm telling you, honest to God, the truth, doctors only have one or two courses in their educational practices about medications. Okay. So they really don't know. And drugs are being added constantly on the market. All right. And these doctors don't have the time, a real physicians, a real surgical doctor, and that they don't have the time to study each and every one of these new drugs and how they're going to interact with somebody else's drugs, because some of the patients don't tell them, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to this guy and I'm getting this and I'm getting that, and I'm going to this one and getting this and getting that. So this is a major problem, folks.
And I agree too, because I had to actually, and I actually look up the interactions of my drugs with the other drugs that I'm taking. And one of the things is, for a pain medication, they were having me taking Tylenol, but I wanted to do something stronger because it wasn't working. And I asked if I could take Aleve, because Aleve really helps me. And because I'm taking a blood thinner, they said, no, it'll interact with it. It'll make it where I may bleed out in case
Right.
but I had to actually ask that question. And even for my COVID shots, my next COVID shot or a flu shot or that, because of what I was going through, I talked to the pharmacist.
Absolutely.
And I talked to the pharmacist and I said, well, I'm having this surgery done and this other surgery. Should I get a COVID shot or should I get a flu shot? Because I've had interactions with some of them. And they said, no, do not get it, because you're having the surgery and we don't know how you would react with the anesthesia and everything with it. And you're better off because you're being very safe. I wasn't going out any place except to doctor's visits, which, the sick people go there. But I just wanted to also mention 2/3 of people who misuse prescription painkillers, it's the painkillers, got them from a friend or a family member. They were never even prescribed them. And I understand, like I've had people, when I was going through some of the pain things I was going through, they said, well, I have some. And I said, no, if I can't get them from my doctor, I'm not taking them. But I have had people offer me them. And I'm going, why would you do that? It's a prescription drug.
But it's happening, and it's happening all over the place. And there are so many, I hate to say it. I mean, if you take all the mobile home parks, and if you take what happened after the hurricane, especially, and there were a number of deaths, that really have gone unnoticed because they were elderly people, blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, it was because some mix up in drugs. I can remember when my mother was alive, I went to my son-in-law's pharmacist and I said, she's on 3 different heart medications. How do these interact? What do we do? What is correct? And he explained to me how this one does this one does that, this one does this, and they really do work together. But, I mean, you just can't give all these people all of this kind of medication, and it's happening. And I remember one time we were at church, and this woman, her husband was having a heart attack or something, heart situation. And the woman immediately gave him some of her stuff. And I can remember there was another nurse there, and she just looked at me and she said, she just killed him.
Oh, man.
She didn't. And you're not going to tell her this because, I mean, my God, the woman was just trying to save her husband. But people will do this. And it's, you've got to understand, our doctors, as I say, have 1 or 2 courses about the drugs and their interaction because their whole career, they don't have it. And remember, if they graduated 5 years ago, how many different drugs have been added to the list since then? Okay.
Oh,
and people go to, how many elderly people do you know? And I'm going with the elderly on this. How many elderly people do you know that say, every day I'm going to a different doctor? Well, if every doctor gives them another prescription, and if they don't share that with the others, and they understand the relationship, that's why pharmacists are so important. Every big medical concern should have a pharmacist there that is working with the patients independently of the doctor to explain how the various medications work and to see if they're duplicates in what they're taking or if they're, contradictory to each other and can cause harm. And another thing you mentioned, and an extremely important thing, that what a lot of people, I didn't know this until it actually happened in our family, broken hip and death. Okay. And it's not the broken hip. It is the putting under and the anesthesia that is causing the brain damage. Okay. And that they can't handle. Another thing we need to get to is that we have more surgeries where we don't have to put them under, especially the elderly. Because it is that interaction and it's the anesthesia that is basically killing them. It's not the broken hip. They can live from the broken hip, but you have a patient who's like say high 80s, 90s-year-old and breaks a hip. You can't just leave them in all that pain.
No.
Well, my injury and
Yeah, when my husband had his hip replacement, he had it February 1st. He was in. They were going to do a spinal. Normally, Dr. Reese did his surgery, and they do a spinal thing that he would have been partially awake. It's like a twilight thing. Mm-hmm. And because he couldn't walk, he was in so much pain. They couldn't even do some of the pre-op stuff that because he was in so much pain. They elected to do the full anesthesia. And he was out. No, when I had my pacemaker, I was awake for the whole thing. They put numbing through my line that they're going into the heart with the leads and that. And I was awake and I was talking with them through my surgery. And I wish somebody would have had told me prior to that I'd be awake all the time, because it kind of freaks you out, but it was quite interesting. To be awake through the surgery, even though they had my face covered, they had a covering like over,
shroud,
that I could not see what they were doing to me, but I could hear them, and they were interacting, and they were talking about things that were off topic for what we were doing there, but they were talking, and I actually interacted with them. They were like, "Oh yeah, she's awake; she can hear us." But for my carotid artery surgery, of course, I was out for that they put me out because they were cutting like I looked like I had been cut by a slasher. However, it came out fine because I couldn't clean it up for a week until they took out my staples. And then after that, it was really healing well. It actually, I don't know if you guys can see it. I should take this off the screen, but it's healed up very nicely. One of the other things I wanted to talk to is about don't put your drugs down in your toilet or something like that, because it gets into the water system, and the water treatment facilities cannot filter out those drugs. So they'll get back into the water system when they're
there's been a lot of talk of that. There's been a fentanyl and all sorts of stuff up in Tampa. There's been a lot of talk about that, and the fact that the fish, are ingesting these things, and the fish, when you eat your fish, guess what? You're getting also the drugs in that. It is a huge problem. And that's what people are doing. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying that, because it is so, so true. I tell you what, it's really scary. And I think modern medicine is going to be surgery like you had with localized anesthesia, but not general. So you are awake, because when your brain is totally put under, as I say, especially when you're elderly, and talking about all this stuff and in talking about what's going on right today. All right. I would say that I really want to shout out to all people, especially in the mobile home park, because what I am seeing is a lot of these senior citizens, it's not just the physical loss of property and that from their place, it's a whole emotional loss. And I see, as I talk to these people, they're scared. Okay. Their way of life is being taken away from them because their neighbor's place is being crushed. A lot of them lost a lot because they didn't have insurance on their mobile home and things like that. But it's kind of like if you go into the mobile home parks, it's a totally different atmosphere. We've lived in Northport for 50 years, and for 50 years, we saw these mobile home parks. They had so much fun. Man, they were active. They were around in their golf carts. They were eating their dinners at the clubhouse and had all sorts of activities. And it was just a wonderful, making them younger, making her happier. And there was just such vitality among each other, and whatever you wanted, they could put a group on, and it was great. But I've seen since the hurricane, and I pray to God this goes back, I have seen despair. I have seen fear. I have seen, and they know that if that mobile home park is taken from them and their mobile home's taken from them, and they're like in their mid 80s or even high 70s, 80s, 90s, no one's going to put them back in another mobile home. It's going to be assisted living or living with some relative. And it's no longer going to be that independent living. We have taken away from a lot of the people their lives. They're
absolutely. And like I'm only 73, yet for a lot of people out there that might be old. Well, one of the things that happened, we had minimal damage at our house, but our fence, and we were on 2 lots, our fence, like a lot of other people, got destroyed. Now, before, my husband and I would be able to go out there and do a lot of these repairs ourselves. We cannot physically do that anymore.
Right.
And I would have never thought in my entire life that I would be saying that and I would have to hire people. Well, with insurance, our insurance, they do a deductible on your fence. And because our fence was, since Hurricane Charlie, we had it put up. So Hurricane Charlie was with 2004. So it was like 19 years ago or 18 years ago. We got very minimal, and we had a $7,000 deductible, 2% hurricane. So, financially, it was with what the prices are today, it was high. And so we were only able to get our white picket fence that's in the front of our house done by we've had to hire lawn people, which my husband always loved to go do the lawn himself. he couldn't. He had
Right.
hip replacement. He had, you know, those things, well, those are an added expense that you never had before either. And when you're older and you're on, and we always say a limited budget,
Right.
we used to own a water well drilling company. So I'd say, just go drill a few more wells. We can pay for stuff. I can't do that
Yeah.
now.
No.
And so when I look at that, it's not only, I thought about that even with us. What would have happened if we lost our house in this? What would we have done? Would have we rebuilt? Would have we moved back closer to family? You know, and you have to make a lot of decisions because of that. When you're younger, it's easier for you to bounce back and
Mhm.
regroup. But when we're older at the end of our lives, and who wants to say that it's at the end of your life, you don't have that many years to recoup. And
And
so,
the fear factor, there's a fear factor. If another, I mean, maybe we shouldn't put this on air, but if there's another hurricane that comes through and hits our area fair quickly, I swear to God, I mean, a lot of them that are hanging on and saying, okay, this was a one time. I mean, Northport, yes, we got hit a little by Charlie, but not like Charlotte did. But actually, for Northport, we've been here since 72, and this is the first time we had this kind of devastation because of a hurricane. You might have had $1 million or $2 million damage here or there, but nothing like we had here. And if another one comes through here, you know, there's no way some of these people. And another fear is the fact that we're coming into another hurricane season, and you know, so many blue roofs and everything else. If another storm comes through there, you know, then you've got, you know, is this the coverage for the first hurricane or second hurricane? And what a mess. You know, so that's another thing. I will say, you're talking about your fence, and yeah, I went up to the fence place because our fence got damaged too. And this is back in September, and they said the first they could get to our house would be January to even look at it. Okay, I mean, that's just the way it was. Okay, another thing I want to talk about, because we had our seawall destroyed. Okay, and just to tell you folks, because we had FEMA flood insurance, we had insurance on the house. Guess what? Not one penny is covered for a seawall. But here is something: if you happen to be in an area where your seawall is on a beach, guess what? There is a plan, get to me, where you can get 50% of that paid for. You know, we are not on a beach. I'd like to call outside our seawall a beach, but I don't think they'd go with it. But I mean, it truly, seawall, you're on your own. And Punta Gorda has a seawall policy where you pay in and they will take care of it, and they inspect them and they go through, and they've put 7 miles worth of seawalls in since Hurricane Ian came through. Northport needs to do that, because there's a lot of places where these seawalls were put in by general development or the city once upon a time, many, many, many decades ago. And if they go, I mean, we're going to talk about millions of dollars. You know, unfortunately, we got hit this time, and that's the way it is. We're kind of over it. The shock factor's off, but we really need to help. Another thing we need to do, and I hate to say it, maybe it's because I'm getting older too, but we know so many people that are suffering from one or more kinds of cancers. Okay, and people need to understand that for every chemo treatment, somebody has to be giving platelets. All right. We need to. I know a lot of people can't give them. I understand that, and that's fine. But if you can give blood, if you can give platelets, and if you're under 60 and can give bone marrow, they won't take it over the age of 60. But if you can give bone marrow, these people desperately need it. It's a life and death matter. For every single chemo treatment, someone was sitting there and did platelets for 2 to 3 hours. And they are desperately, desperately needed, because, you know, every single one of us can list the people we know that are getting chemo treatments. And blood. I'll give you an example. When I was a teacher, we had one kid that was in a motorcycle accident. You know, shouldn't have happened, but did happen. All right. He needed 100 pints of blood. They had to keep on redoing his blood, and he's fine now. Now he's a man in his late 40s, and as far as I know, his life is great and fine and everything else. but it took 100 pints of blood because for some reason they had to keep on redoing his blood because of infections and things like that from the cycle accident. So that means 100 people had to give blood for this one person to make it through. And thank God he got the blood, and thank God he's okay. So I'm begging anyone, anyone who can give blood, anyone who can give platelets, and if you're under 60 and if you can give bone marrow, God bless you. We need your help because, unfortunately, there's more cases, and it seems like this year and since the hurricane, there has been more and more. And I think what's happened is the mental exhaustion, the physical exhaustion, the emotional exhaustion has kind of hurt our health.
Joan, we have a question. Where can you give in the area? Can you give platelets?
One blood in the shopping center right across from Lowe's. One blood is right in there next to Fantastic Stamps, and on the other side of it is Steve Matthews Allstate, and one blood is right there. Okay, and you can call them and you can go in because a lot of times they're so busy they can't always do everything on the phone. So go to One Blood, and that's right in that cute little shopping center right there.
Okay, and Charlotte County, we have One Blood also, and it's down off of it's close to Kings Highway and Edgewater, going Harborview. That you can go and take a look there. You could probably Google One Blood too in the area to do that. And there's always blood drives going on around that they have the bus going around. Now, Joan, when you're talking about giving blood also, I'm one of those people that couldn't give it, and they asked me to come and get checked because we were quarantined when I was a child for what they used to call yellow jaundice, but it's a type of hepatitis. And Doc Graham, who was from the Field of Dreams, Moonlight Graham, was my doctor, my real doctor in real life. So just to give the audience a little tidbit of my little background, and they have Moonlight Graham Day, where I'm originally from, Chisholm, Minnesota. And but that's another story. They used to make house calls back then, and he came to our house.
Remember those days.
Yeah, so the doctor would come to the house, and I remember having a quarantine sign on our door that people couldn't come because it was catchy, contagious. So, but I've been asked now by the blood people to come in and have my blood tested, just so we can see if I'm okay to get it and give blood. Yeah. But here's another issue too. When you're talking about that, they have trouble with me with my veins giving blood.
A lot of people can't give it at all. I mean, I understand that a lot of people who have had certain sicknesses, a lot of people on certain medication, anyone who's had cancer, I mean, they can't. And we understand that. But for those of you who can, we need your help. This is something you have to do. This is something, if you can do it, we beg you. It's not fun giving platelets and sitting there for a few hours. Believe me, it is not fun. But on the other hand, once you've done it, you sit there and you say, I might have saved somebody's life today. Same thing with giving blood. I understand, and I'm not trying to guilt anyone who can't give it. Believe me, because there are a lot of people who can't. And I know some people who have been really faithful platelet givers, but for some reason things changed within their own bodies, and now they cannot give it, and they feel guilty about that. But that's the way it goes. I mean, I'm just talking about if you can. If you would please do that. And I'm telling you, it's not fun. I'm telling you, it's not, but it's kind of like one of those things you do because you're a human being, because you love people, and because you care about people, and you pray to God that if one of your relatives needs that chemo or blood transfusion, that the stuff is there for them.
Oh, absolutely. And I do know that giving blood, that's a sacrifice that if you do nothing else in your life, if you want to help save somebody. And if you're having surgery yourself, that was one of the questions I was asked when I went in for my carotid artery surgery. Do you have blood banked?
Okay,
And
yeah, there are blood banks, and I can tell you because I know we did this for my mother. Okay, we turned around and we supplied blood because a couple of us in the family could give it for her. Now they have to do something like a direct descendant, okay, like a mother daughter, something like that. Then they have to put radiation through it. So sometimes they don't use that. But what we did, we worked around it. My husband gave for my mother because we're all kind of the A negative, A positive ones. And you could do, my father gave for my mother, but I couldn't give for my mother because the direct descendancy. Now they also have a program where you can give for yourself. You can
right,
pile up blood. And actually the royal family in England does that. Anytime that they're out someplace, away, a blood supply goes with them. Okay.
I
Yeah.
did
And you
not
don't
know
know if it's there
that.
for somebody else. Yeah. I read that they, in case there's a need, they're not going to fool around. They're going to have it right then and there. But yeah, but there is a program where if you're going to have surgery, that you can give your own blood in that. But there is something. So make sure you talk to your doctors or whatever about a direct line giving. But as I say, that's why we use my husband for my mother and my father for my mother because it wasn't a relative, and they gave, and you have to pay. I will tell you, it cost, and this was a number of years ago, and it cost us like $70 or $80 to do that, but we felt safer in the fact that we knew whose blood it was, and maybe she'd be better off. Of course, my mother said after she got my father's blood, that's why she's slower and dumber. But that was my mother.
Yeah, exactly. Just for everybody that's listening, you're listening to Marie LaBrosse, and Joan Morgan is my guest today. You're listening to WKDW 97.5 FM out of Northport, Florida. And we're here talking, we're talking about everything. We're talking about it being turning drugs for the month. Drug prevention, your old drugs, get rid of them so they're not laying around if nobody's going to use them. And there was a fact too, Joan, that I was bringing up. 290 overdoses deaths occur each day, of which 220 of every are caused by opioids. Just for people to realize how how much our country, our people are affected by the drug overdoses.
And tell me how much is coming in from the border and all. I mean, you read some of that statistics and all this stuff, and you've got to put it away because you just want it. You're sick. I mean, tell me the fact that we can't stop some of the stuff coming over the border, and we can't protect ourselves, and how it's coming in, and these cartels and all of this kind of stuff. And it is sad. I mean, kids today, not just drugs, but this vaping. My God, what are you doing to your future?
Yeah, I mean, if you could see your lungs.
I think people now understand that, guess what? Smoking's not good for you. I think finally people have that message. But for some reason, they're still thinking that vaping, which is stuff that hasn't been tested, we don't know what's going to be in the future. There really isn't the legislation there should be on it. Oh, yeah, got to do that because it's the in thing. Come on, wake up. It's your life. It's your life.
Anything that goes unnatural into your body, talking about that, I actually watched, I didn't know there was a second Big Fat Greek Wedding 2. There was my Big Fat Greek Wedding, there's a 2. But one of the things that I noticed that really hit me is, as we were growing up, in our mothers and maybe yourself or that, with hairspray, they go like this and do the hairspray, and you're breathing that in, and I'm going, what is that doing to your lungs?
Yeah.
Around that, it's kind of interesting. I should probably do research of how many hairdressers or people that use hairspray have had some ended up with cancer or lung conditions because of using hairspray.
Yeah, so a lot of people who have done pest controls and all of this
Oh,
kind of stuff, and
that's
spraying them.
right.
I mean, all of this stuff on an aerosol can. Want to go back to platelets for 1 second and tell you another fact that you should know. Platelets, when you give them, okay, they only have a 5-day shelf life.
5 days.
To get them out to whatever. And let me tell you something. When you get platelets, almost like 36 hours, 48 hours later, you find out they'll send you through the blood bank where your platelets went. And I am amazed because they have to match them up so specifically and everything else. It's not hodgepodge. It's not a general, hey, type A blood, give it to type A blood and all this stuff. I mean, I am amazed that sometimes my platelets, they're going to Minnesota or they're going to Texas, or sometimes they go to Florida. But a lot of times the platelets don't end up in Florida. I mean, it's kind of like they have to match them up so specifically, and they have a very short shelf life. So, so this bit about needing, the platelets and all this stuff is unbelievable. The work behind it. Even when you're at a blood bank, they pick up that blood several times a day. I mean, it's just kind of like you give the blood and somebody's there picking it up and taking it out and starting to work with it and all of this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a real thing. But oh yeah, we are doing so much damage to ourselves. I mean, some of the stuff we didn't know. All right. I mean, I used hairspray. You used hairspray. We've all done this. Painting indoors and the fumes. I mean, there are so many things. If it smells bad, it probably is bad. We've all sprayed bug spray. We've all sprayed it on ourselves. We've all sprayed it around the place and all this stuff. All the stuff you spray on yourself to go to the beach. You don't need to be in the beach and convincing kids not to sit on the beach and get sunburned 24 hours a day as hard. But
How about the shoe repair guy?
Yeah.
Oh, I used to love to walk by the shoe repair guy in our because you smell those fumes and I think about those guys, and I do know that they've had a lot of lung problems.
Yeah.
So you imagine
pest control guys. I can name some that were in Northport, great guys, pest control guys. And I mean, you're constantly dealing with these products, and some of them you don't know, and it's really and it's true. All of those kinds of industries, and there's a lot more. I mean, we really, we're not going to be able to sit here and name them all, but I'd say if it smells bad, it is bad.
Yeah. Okay, Joan, seeing as we've bored our audience with blood and hurricanes and all that. And when I had posted, I actually, if people can see and they see this light on me, I have skylights and they're shining down on me. So I'm kind of like, okay, I should have moved my seat, realized that it was off balance here. But anyhow, let's talk. Because we're actually 40 minutes and already 40 minutes into the show. Yeah, well, you and I can always chit chat and that. In case anybody doesn't know, you're listening to Marie LaBrosse on WKDW 97.5 FM Rural Community Radio. My guest is Joan Morgan. You're listening to Sleuthing Eye Opening Tales of the Past. And I can talk about anything on this show because everything happens in the past after we talk about it. It's the past there. In case any of you don't know who Joan Morgan is, Joan Morgan's been here since 1972. She's one of the oldest people that live. Yeah. Well, you've lived here one of the longest time, you and Gene Matthews.
That's right. He's been here a couple more months than us.
Yeah, there you have it. He's Mr. Northport, and he was just handed the key to the city the other day. And the Morgan Center in Northport is named after Joan and her family. So just for people to know, she's, to me, a legacy. She's had a lot to do with that. She was a teacher. You were a history teacher.
Yep.
And her husband?
Math teacher. Uh-oh. What happened? What happened? Okay, hold on. What happened? Ed?
An ad
Okay.
times. Okay, we're back, Joan. Do you
Oh,
see
okay.
us?
I was wondering.
I don't
Okay.
know what was happening, and I was still up on the internet, but ever since the Hurricane Florida, well, I shouldn't say Florida Flicker, Xfinity. I'm on Xfinity. Sometimes we lose their signal. It's been real sketchy since the hurricane. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you
What?
something about Gene Matthews. Another thing, because of course we honor him. And I was so glad the key to the city, and not just honoring him, but you can't honor Lorraine because she keeps
Okay.
herself behind the scenes. If it wasn't for Lorraine, I mean, Lorraine did so much. And
That's his
Lorraine
wife. That's Jean's
everything.
wife. Yeah, that's
Gene's
Jean's
wife
wife.
of many decades, and his kids, Steve Matthews, phenomenal. Debbie Snowden, phenomenal. Diane, who lives in Tampa, still. Let me tell you something. She's phenomenal. We had her as a former student. But let me tell you about the Boys and Girls Club. Let's honor those in Northport that are doing great. There's a family, and I can't name because I can't remember, that gave $1 million to rebuild the Boys and Girls Club. There's another one that gave 500,000, and a foundation that's giving another $1 million. They have $2.8 million already to rebuild the whole Gene Matthews Boys and Girls Club, which is going to cost $4.5 million. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. That tells of the generosity and the value that people see in what the Boys and Girls Club do for the citizens, for the city of Northport, and around the country. It's not just in Northport. The Boys and Girls Club do so much, and here in Charlotte County too. The Boys and Girls Club does such a phenomenal job. And I know the people that are the executive director. I actually did leadership Charlotte with Lynn Dorler and Monica Luna. She was actually in our class too. But the people behind the scenes, they're so dedicated for what they're doing and what the mission statement is for what the Boys and Girls Club do. And they do the after school programs for a lot of the children. What do you
children,
do?
a lot of them are there. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's another good thing. Now, Joan, tell us about what is going on also with you.
Okay, I want to mention another group, because this group is the veterans, and I'd have to say Port Charlotte and Punta Gorda is even more into it. As you know, we're going to be building a new veterans park next to City Hall in Northport, and we hope that's coming along well. Okay, and I'm sure it will be. But let me talk about another group, and this is so phenomenal. Down in Punta Gorda, there's a 12.5-acre area, and it's going to be My Warrior's Place. Ruskin is where it's located right now. They are moving from there because there's a lot of disputes about the roadway going in, and there's been a lot of problems up there. So they're moving it down to Punta Gorda. They've got this 12.5-acre area to help veterans. And when we talk about suicide and that, 20 to 30 veterans commit suicide a day. Just the other day, on the 19th of this month, down at the William Gaines Jr. Memorial Park off of Edgewater.
Right.
They had the laying of the wreaths for veterans who have committed suicide. And it was a phenomenal program. They're doing so much at the William Gaines Center. We are doing so much for veterans in this area. And let me tell you what My Warriors Run is going to My Warriors Place. A lot of veterans are refusing care and things like that because they don't have a place for their dog to be. This is an important thing to them because their dog is their companionship. Maybe it was with them even in combat and that. And guess what? My Warriors Place is going to have, there's going to have facilities there where veterans who need medical treatment and that their dogs will be able to be there free of charge, and they will take care of them. They're going to have horse therapy too. This is going to be in the next few years, because I'll tell you what, we're so proud of people like Shannon Messenberg and her husband, Mitch, and that they are on the Holly's Hope group, and others that are working so hard for veterans in our area. We have the Vietnam Wall, the small portion of the Vietnam Wall down in Punta Gorda. The military museum now is part of Fisherman's Village. Hopefully that's going to be okay. But now that they're selling Fisherman's Village, hopefully, I don't know exactly all that's happening there, but I know people are working on it. And I know part of the agreement for Fisherman's Village is that place cannot be taken away. It still has to be a military thing. But we are doing so much for veterans, and they need our help and they need our support. And we have so many veterans in our area that I hope everyone can go down off of Edgewater to the William Gaines Park. They're going to build a huge tower there. They now have monuments to not just veterans, but first responders, the
Right.
Gold Star mothers. They have put a monument there. And this Shannon Messenberg, who I just talked about, she's now the president of the Gold Star Mothers, and right down here in Port Charlotte. So that's another group that we need to say thank you to, support, and see. But My Warrior's Place is something we're going to be talking about in the future, because that is going to be absolutely helping so many veterans. So
yeah, one of our show hosts, CJ Metcalf, is she's on the board of directors of the Military Heritage Museum, and her mission is always to help veterans. She's involved with the veterans place down in Punta Gorda too, where they house. There's just a small facility that they take veterans off the street and get them into a location to get them the services that they need and get them their product for their home and that. In fact, when I was doing the remodel for my home here, I put out that I had a big screen TV and different things that I was giving away. And one of the veterans actually took me up on that. And so I gave him a sound system that went along that he could have surround sound. And I'm going, where are you putting this big TV in your place? But he did it, and he had somebody come up and pick it up. But just to let people know, in case you're ever interested in donating even to them, get a hold of, I should have that information. CJ Metcalf, part of the radio station, can actually take care of that stuff for you. And I can give you her phone number here. Oh, I cannot because I have my phone turned off, but just reach out to the radio station or reach out to me, Marie LaBrosse, Marie at kdwradio.com, or you can give me a phone call, 941-815-6230. And I know it's up on my Facebook page too. So, Joan, what else? Let's talk about you, because we only have like 3 minutes left.
Okay, I want to warn everybody. Here's something, and we're going to have on another program by a woman who's worked out very hard with autistic kids and things like that. And that program has to go through. But I want to warn everybody about whiteboards. And this is something she says is destroying so many kids. The whiteboards, the glare from it, and all schools want to. And this new Welland Park, the new charter school, they're thinking, oh, this is great. They're going to have whiteboards at every kid's desk. The glare from that, your brain, especially kids that have underdeveloped brains, and that it is really hard for them to focus. Okay. And whiteboards are not good for every place. So don't think that you're going to help your kid by getting them a nice new whiteboard. And we need to, we really, truly need to check them out, because
yeah, and that's going to be for a program that I'll probably be airing that will be streaming next week. So we're going to hold off on going down that road right now, just to give Joan actually did the advertising for it, but I don't know what day that I'm going to have Susan on, because one of the things that I want to mention to everybody is we all have something in memories for our families in our story. So in case you ever want to be on my radio show and you tell your story of your life, because everybody has a story to tell, whether you think it's boring or not, right, Joan?
Oh, yeah. I tell you what, as I say, what we've done, okay, two more things if I can say. Number one is the fact that anybody that has anything about the history of Northport, we're putting it together, Northport dates. We need it. We don't have all the information. And the history of Northport has not been well kept. And we all know that. I'm sorry, it's a fact. So any of you who have family members who have done something, because I don't have it all, and we're not trying to leave you out because we don't like you. We're trying to include everybody. So please get that to me, emjm67@yahoo.com. Get us the information and we will put that in Northport dates. So that's one thing. A second thing is May is Mental Health Month. All right. And if there's anything that, the hurricane, everything else, society, what's going on. I mean, you see the news, and how can you not be depressed? Okay. I mean, these shootings, for God's sake, folks, don't shoot each other. Stop these shootings. It's just unbelievable. Please be safe. Please realize that you need your help. We are going to be having other programs. For example, the Suicide Prevention Walk is October 21st, and that's down at Lashley Park in Punta Gorda. So you can look up that, and we'll tell you about it before then. Anybody
up on the screen too, you see the National Suicide National Hotline, 1-800-273-8255. If you're contemplating suicide, that is a phone number. And what's a number that you call now, Joan? You can just dial 3 digits. What's that number?
988.
Yeah, 988 that you call.
That just came in. Yeah, that's going to help. That's going to help a lot. Please, we have 2 things for you. Holly's Hope meets the first Tuesday of every month at the Morgan Center, 6:00. You're all invited. And here's where we work on a lot of programs for mental health. Secondly, the second Wednesday of every month is the Survivors of Suicide group. And that meets over at New Hope Church in module number 2, 6:00. Both meetings start at 6:00. It's open for everybody who has lost somebody from a suicide. And we're there just to help each other. We need each other, because a death or a loss of somebody from suicide is totally different than a loss from some other way.
From illness or whatever. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Because people have self-blame that they didn't see that they didn't see what was going on. Well, I'd like to thank our audience today for tuning in. This is Marie LaBrosse, and my guest today was Joan Morgan, the incredible Joan Morgan. And you're listening to us on WKDW 97.5 FM, Rural Community Radio out of Northport, Florida. If you can do anything in your life, any way to pay it forward, just be kind. That's all you have to do is be kind. It can change a person's day. It can change a person's life. Thank you again for taking the time out of your precious day to listen to us. Sleuthing Eye Opening Tales of the Past. See you again next week. Bye-bye.